The first thing Nathan Cole ever said to me was not hello. It was, do not leave this room. 12 minutes earlier, I had been thinking about nothing more dangerous than whether my car would start in 17-degree weather. Chicago snow pressed against the restaurant windows, turning headlights into pale streaks beyond the glass. I had been working almost 11 hours, my feet hurt, and the coffee keeping me upright tasted like something scraped from the bottom of a machine. One final order stood between me and home. Bourbon. Neat. Private room 9. At least, that was what the service ticket said. I balanced the glass on my tray and walked upstairs. Bellwether had 6 private dining rooms along that corridor, each hidden behind dark walnut doors. Room 9 was unusually quiet. I knocked once and entered. 4 men sat around a polished table. Nobody was eating. Nobody was smiling. The man at the head of the table looked up first. Dark suit. White shirt. No tie. Maybe 37. He did not have to raise his voice or straighten his shoulders. The room seemed arranged around him already. Bourbon, I said. Who ordered it? Nobody answered. I placed the glass near him because the ticket listed seat 1. His eyes moved from the drink to my face. I did not. My stomach dropped. Then somebody downstairs owes both of us an apology. One of the men glanced toward the door. The man in front of me did not. What room were you given? 9. Show me. I handed him the ticket. He studied it beneath the amber table lamp. Before he could speak, the door opened behind me. My manager, Mark Ellis, appeared completely out of breath. The moment he saw the man holding my ticket, the color left his face. Mr. Cole, I apologize. Emily, downstairs. Now. So that was Nathan Cole. I knew the name. Almost everyone working downtown did. Cole Meridian Logistics owned warehouses, transportation contracts, and enough commercial property to make newspapers interested whenever Nathan bought another building. Bellwether employees knew something else too. When Nathan Cole reserved a private room, nobody entered without authorization. I was given this ticket, I said. Mark. Reach for it. Nathan kept it. Who printed this? He asked. There must have been a mix-up, Mark said. There was not. Nathan angled the paper beneath the light. I saw it then. A faint curve beneath the handwritten 9. Another number had been there first. 6. Someone had written over it. Mark swallowed. Emily, leave. I turned toward the door. Do not leave this room, Nathan said. I stopped. My exhaustion disappeared beneath a sudden pulse of anger. I looked back at him. You can ask me to stay. Nobody moved. Nathan's expression changed by barely anything, but I saw surprise pass through it. Excuse me. I work for the restaurant. Not for you. Mark looked like he wanted the carpet to swallow him. Nathan looked at me for several silent seconds. Then he placed the ticket carefully on the table. Emily, would you please stay for 1 minute? That was better. I stepped away from the door. Nathan asked who had handed me the ticket. I told him it had been waiting at the service station with my initials written across the top. Who knew you were covering the upstairs section tonight? Half the staff. Anyone outside the restaurant. Why would anyone care? He did not answer. Instead, he turned the ticket over. My initials were written there too, darker than the rest of the ink. Nathan stared at them, then at Mark. Preserve the security footage from tonight. Mark blinked. Why? Nathan slid the altered ticket into an empty envelope. Because she did not walk into the wrong room by accident. I felt the cold before I understood the words. Nathan looked at me again, and for the first time his voice lost its command. Someone wanted Emily Parker in this room. For several seconds, nobody spoke. I stared at the envelope in Nathan's hand, as if it might explain why anyone would care which room a tired waitress entered on a Thursday night. You think somebody chose me? I asked. I think somebody chose your uniform, your shift, and your access, Nathan said. Somehow, that answer felt worse. So I was convenient. His eyes stayed on mine. Possibly. I folded my arms. That is comforting. Mark stepped closer. Emily, downstairs. We will handle this. Internally. I looked at him. 5 minutes ago, you wanted me gone before anyone asked questions. This is not the place. Apparently, it became the place when someone wrote my initials on that ticket. Nathan said nothing, but I noticed the smallest shift in his expression. Approval, maybe. Mark noticed it too. Your shift is over, he said. Actually, it ended 20 minutes ago. Then go home. I took 1 step toward the door. Nathan did not stop me this time. Emily. I turned. He placed a business card on the table. If anyone from Bellwether contacts you about changing your account of tonight, call that number. Is it yours? My general counsel's. Good. That surprised him. Why good? Because lawyers are usually less dramatic than powerful men in private dining rooms. One of the men at the table looked down, hiding a smile. Nathan almost did the same. I went downstairs, changed out of my apron, and drove home through 6 miles of snow. By 9 the next morning, Bellwether had called me back. Mark asked me to come in before lunch. His office smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner. He did not offer me a chair. We reviewed what happened, he said. And you entered a restricted private room without confirming the order. The ticket had my initials. You were still responsible for checking it. I stared at him. Are you firing me? He avoided my eyes. That answered the question before he did. 20 minutes later, I walked into the freezing parking lot carrying my uniform in a paper bag and wondering how I was going to make rent. My phone rang before I reached my car. An unfamiliar Chicago number. Miss Parker, a woman asked. Yes. My name is Claire Bennett. I am calling from Human Resources at Cole Meridian Logistics. I stopped walking. Nathan Cole gave me your contact information because our events department needs temporary support. He specifically instructed me to tell you that there is no obligation to interview. I looked back at Bellwether. Did he tell you I was fired? No. Mr. Cole told me you handled an unusual situation professionally and that your restaurant experience might translate well to event operations. That mattered more than I wanted it to. What does the job pay? Claire told me. I nearly asked her to repeat it. The hourly rate was almost twice what Bellwether had paid before tips. Send me the details, I said. 2 days later, I interviewed with Claire and the events director, not Nathan. 3 days after that, I started a 4-week temporary contract downtown. I did not see him until Wednesday afternoon. Nathan walked into the conference room while I was organizing seating charts. He stopped when he saw me. You took the job. I took a job, I corrected. There is a difference. Fair enough. He placed a thin folder on the table. Inside was a printed still from Bellwether's security footage. A man in a gray overcoat stood beside the service station less than an hour before I entered room 9. His face was turned away from the camera. His hand rested beside the stack of service tickets. Do you recognize him? Nathan asked. I shook my head. Then I noticed the watch on the man's wrist. Silver case. Dark blue band. I had seen it before. Not at Bellwether. Across the table during my interview that morning. I knew the watch before I knew the man. Silver case. Dark blue band. Clean enough to catch the conference room light when he had reached across the table that morning and introduced himself as Richard Vance. He was here, I said. Nathan's attention sharpened. When? During my interview. He came into the conference room for maybe 2 minutes. Claire introduced him as an outside consultant. Nathan closed the folder. Did he speak to you? He asked whether I was enjoying my first week. Anything else? He said Cole Meridian had a habit of turning accidents into opportunities. Nathan became very still. That sounds different now, does it not? A little. I looked toward the glass wall separating us from the main office. People moved between desks, carrying coffee and folders, living completely ordinary Wednesday afternoons. Mine suddenly felt less ordinary. Who is Richard Vance? A consultant representing investors involved in a logistics agreement my company is negotiating. Was he in room 9? No. Was he supposed to be? No. I leaned against the table. Then why would he want me there? Nathan looked at the security still again. That is what I intend to find out. Friday evening gave us the first opportunity. Cole Meridian hosted a corporate dinner at a hotel along the Chicago River. I was assigned to coordinate vendors, seating changes, and guest arrivals. Nothing glamorous. Mostly clipboards and people asking questions they could have answered by reading their emails. At 7:15, Richard entered the ballroom. I recognized the watch immediately. Then he recognized me. His smile lasted half a second too long. Miss Parker, he said when he reached the registration table. We meet again. Apparently. How are you finding your new position? Busy. Nathan does appreciate keeping useful people close. I did not like the way he said useful. Before I could answer, Richard moved toward the dining room. Nathan appeared beside me less than a minute later. What did he say? You know, most employers begin with hello. Hello, Emily. What did he say? I almost smiled. Almost. I repeated Richard's words. Nathan looked across the ballroom. Until this is finished, stay beside me. There it was again. Not a request. An instruction dressed in concern. No, his gaze returned to me. No. Ask me. This is not the time. Then you picked the wrong woman. The noise of the ballroom seemed to fade behind us. Nathan lowered his voice. Richard may have deliberately placed you inside a confidential meeting. I do not know what he expected you to hear, what he wanted you to see, or whether he intends to approach you again. That explains why you are concerned. It does not explain why you think concern gives you authority over me. His jaw tightened. Emily. Nathan. He stared at me for several seconds. Then something changed. Not surrender. Adjustment. Would you stay near me tonight while we determine why Richard is here? Yes. The answer came easily once the choice belonged to me. We entered the ballroom together. People noticed. Conversations softened. Heads turned. I could feel assumptions forming around us, but Nathan did not touch me or guide me toward his table. He simply walked beside me. At dinner, the chair to his right was empty. He looked at it, then at me. Would you sit here? You are improving. I sat. Halfway through the first course, Richard approached our table carrying a folder. He placed it in front of Nathan. The revised agreement. Nathan opened it. I saw Richard's watch again as his sleeve moved back. Then I saw something else. A faint black stain near his thumb. Printer ink. The same unusual blue-black shade that had covered the altered number on my service ticket. Richard noticed where I was looking. His hand disappeared into his pocket. And for the first time that evening, he stopped smiling. Richard recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. I had already seen the stain. Nathan had seen me notice it. Neither of us said anything until Richard returned to his table. What? Nathan asked quietly. Ink on his hand. That proves nothing. I know. I appreciated that answer. A week earlier, I might have expected him to turn suspicion into certainty simply because he had the power to do it. Instead, he closed the revised agreement and continued dinner as if nothing had happened. By 10:30, the last guests were leaving. I was checking vendor invoices when Nathan found me near the ballroom entrance. My legal team will compare the restaurant ticket with documents from Vance's office. Legally obtained documents? I asked. Yes. Good. His eyebrow lifted. You really do expect the worst from me. I expect you to remember that having resources does not mean every solution belongs to you. He studied me for a moment. Walk with me. Is that an order? He exhaled. Would you walk with me? Much better. We crossed the hotel lobby toward a quiet seating area overlooking the river. Snow had stopped, leaving the sidewalk silver beneath the streetlights. Nathan sat across from me instead of beside me. That mattered. If you are going to remain involved until we understand this, he said, we need rules. I almost laughed. I was about to tell you the same thing. Go ahead. Nobody follows me home. Nobody checks where I am without telling me. You do not contact my landlord, pay my bills, change my schedule, or decide where I go. His expression remained controlled, but I could tell at least 3 of those possibilities had already occurred to him. Transportation after late events? Offer it. Do not arrange it before I answer. Fair. And if I decide this is too much, I leave. That one took longer. Nathan looked through the window toward the Chicago River. I do not like that condition. You do not have to like it. You are remarkably comfortable saying no to me. Maybe people should practice more. His mouth moved slightly. Almost a smile. Anything else? Yes. Stop treating me like evidence. His eyes returned to mine. Explain. I am not the altered ticket. I am not the security footage. I am a person who had a job, lost it, and somehow ended up sitting beside a man everyone seems afraid to disagree with. Are you afraid of me? Sometimes. The honesty surprised both of us. But fear does not make you right. Nathan became silent. The hotel lights reflected against the glass behind him. Then my rule, he finally said. You tell me when something makes you uncomfortable. Immediately. That sounds suspiciously reasonable. Do not get used to it. The next morning, I arrived at Cole Meridian expecting another ordinary day of seating charts and catering calls. Instead, Claire handed me responsibility for a 70-person client reception after the senior coordinator called in sick. 2 hours later, a vendor canceled. Then the room assignment changed. Then the catering company delivered 12 fewer place settings than requested. I fixed each problem without calling Nathan once. At 4:15, he entered the ballroom and found everything ready. Who handled this? He asked Claire. She pointed at me. Nathan looked around the room, then back at me. You did all of this. Try not to sound shocked. That evening, when an executive asked Nathan whether the reception schedule could be moved 30 minutes earlier, Nathan did not answer. He looked toward me. Ask Emily. It is her event. The executive turned to me. For the first time since I had entered the wrong room, I was not standing beside Nathan because he wanted to keep me close. I was standing there because I had earned the right to be heard. Then my phone vibrated. An unknown number had sent a single message. It contained a photograph of the original service ticket before the number was changed. The photograph on my phone showed the service ticket before anyone had touched the number. Room 6. Seat 1. Bourbon Neat. My initials were already written across the top. For a moment, the noise of the reception disappeared behind the sound of my own breathing. Emily. Nathan was beside me, but he did not reach for the phone. That was new. Someone sent me this. I turned the screen toward him. His expression hardened as he studied the image. Do not delete anything. I know. Forward it to Claire and my general counsel. I know that too. His eyes lifted to mine. You are getting difficult to instruct. You are getting easier to train. That almost earned a smile. Almost. We stepped into an empty conference room while the reception continued outside. Nathan called his attorney, explained exactly what had arrived, and handed the conversation to me so I could describe the message myself. No exaggeration. No assumptions. Just facts. The number had been changed from 6 to 9 after the original ticket was photographed. Whoever sent the image had been close enough to the service station to capture it before my shift went wrong. Can the number be traced? I asked after the call ended. Possibly. Nathan looked at the photograph again. But whoever sent this may want us looking in a particular direction. Richard. Exactly. I sat at the conference table. You think someone is framing him? I think evidence should survive questions before we trust it. I looked at him. That may be the most reasonable thing you have ever said. I regret saying it already. The following afternoon, the legal team found something more useful than ink. Bellwether's preserved access records showed that Richard's consulting firm had booked a private lunch there 3 days before my shift. Richard himself had attended. Security footage placed him near the upstairs service corridor. Still not proof, but the coincidence was getting crowded. That evening, I joined Nathan at a client dinner. Because I was coordinating the event, the chair to his right was empty again. This time, he did not tell me to sit there. He waited. I chose it. Halfway through dinner, an executive leaned toward Nathan and asked whether Monday's transportation presentation could be moved to another venue. Nathan glanced at me. Emily manages the event schedule. The executive turned immediately. What do you recommend? 3 weeks earlier, I had been carrying drinks for people who rarely remembered my name. Now a room full of executives waited while I explained why moving the presentation would create vendor conflicts and additional costs. Nobody interrupted. When I finished, Nathan simply said, "Then we keep the original venue." Something warm settled behind my ribs. Not because he had agreed with me, because he had listened. After dinner, Richard appeared near the elevators. "You have adapted quickly," he said. "I work quickly." His gaze shifted toward Nathan, who stood 20 feet away speaking with Claire. "Careful. A chair beside a powerful man can feel like a promotion until you realize it is also a cage. Is that why you changed my service ticket?" Richard's expression remained calm, but his eyes did not. "You should be careful with accusations." That was a question. He stepped into the elevator when the doors opened. Ask Nathan what was being discussed in room 9 before deciding who used whom. The doors closed. Nathan approached. I repeated every word. He listened without interrupting. What was being discussed? I asked. For the first time since I met him, Nathan hesitated. A contract that could remove Richard's firm from a major logistics partnership. I stared at him. So he had a reason to disrupt that meeting. Yes. And you knew that from the beginning. Silence answered before he did. I stood. You wanted honesty from me, Nathan. Emily. No. My rules apply to you too. I walked toward the lobby, leaving the chair beside him empty. Then Nathan said the one thing that made me stop. There is something else about that night I have not told you. I stopped with my hand inches from the lobby door. Then tell me. Nathan looked toward the elevators, where the last dinner guests were disappearing behind polished steel doors. Room 9 was not just about removing Richard's firm from one partnership, he said. We were reviewing evidence that someone had been feeding confidential scheduling information to outside bidders. I turned back. And you thought Richard was involved? I suspected someone connected to him. Before I walked into that room? Yes. Anger rose slowly this time. Colder. Cleaner. So when you realized my ticket had been changed, you already knew someone might be trying to interfere with that meeting? Yes. And you let me spend weeks thinking we were discovering that together. Nathan did not defend himself. I should have told you sooner. You should have. He stepped closer, then stopped several feet away. I believed withholding details would protect the investigation. That sounds reasonable when you say investigation instead of Emily. His expression tightened. You were never a tool to me. Then stop deciding what I am allowed to know. Silence settled between us. Finally, Nathan nodded. You are right. I had expected an argument. Somehow, agreement made the moment heavier. The next morning, he gave me access to every fact his attorneys said could legally be shared. Richard's firm had benefited from leaked meeting schedules twice in 6 months. The altered service ticket appeared to have been designed to create a harmless interruption while someone photographed documents left visible during the confusion. I had ruined that plan without knowing it because Nathan had closed the folder the second I entered. By afternoon, another piece arrived. Bellwether's internal records showed Richard had exchanged emails with Mark before my shift. The language was careful, but one message asked Mark to ensure an unfamiliar server handled the upstairs delivery. My initials appeared on the ticket less than an hour later. Nathan read the email once. That is enough for me. Enough for what? Richard's firm depends on 3 contracts connected to companies I control. I knew that tone now. Quiet. Precise. Dangerous only because he did not need to raise his voice. Nathan. By Monday those relationships can end. No, his eyes met mine. He used you. Then let your attorneys handle what he did. There are consequences beyond courtrooms. There is also revenge dressed as business. His jaw tightened. You expect me to do nothing? I expect you to do something harder. I stepped closer. Let the consequence fit the evidence. He put you in the middle of this. And if you destroy everything around him simply because you can, then he still controls what kind of man you become. Nathan looked away toward the Chicago skyline. Snow clouds hung low between the buildings. For several seconds, I could hear nothing except the office ventilation and my own heartbeat. Then he picked up his phone. He called General Counsel. Preserve everything. Submit the findings through compliance. Notify the affected partners that an independent review is underway. No private pressure. No retaliatory contract decisions. He ended the call. Satisfied? Ask me when the review is finished. A faint smile touched his face. Impossible woman. Improving man. 3 days later, Richard's consulting firm was formally placed under review by the companies involved. Bellwether opened its own investigation into Mark's conduct. Nothing dramatic happened. Nobody vanished. Nobody was publicly destroyed. Evidence moved through attorneys, contracts, and compliance offices. Real consequences moved slowly. That Friday afternoon, Nathan found me packing event folders into a cabinet. Your temporary contract ends next week, he said. I know. And the reason I asked you to stay beside me is almost gone. I waited. Nathan's voice softened. When this is finished, Emily, you will not owe me another day. I had spent weeks demanding exactly that freedom. I never expected receiving it to feel so much like losing something. Freedom arrived on a Tuesday afternoon with a cardboard box and a silence I had spent 4 weeks demanding. The compliance review had confirmed enough of the evidence for Cole Meridian to remove Richard's firm from the pending partnership through standard contractual procedures, while Bellwether's investigation found that Mark had knowingly ignored irregular instructions concerning my shift. Nobody celebrated. Nathan least of all. He simply told me the matter no longer required my involvement. My temporary contract ended that Friday. By then, I had already accepted a full-time event coordinator position with a hospitality company near the Chicago River. Better hours, health insurance, a salary that meant I could stop checking my bank balance before buying groceries. Most importantly, I had earned it without Nathan making a single call. I checked. Claire laughed when I asked her. Friday evening, I packed my coffee mug, notebooks, phone charger, and the ridiculous little cactus someone from accounting had left on my desk. Nathan's office door was open when I walked past. He looked up, leaving without saying goodbye. I was considering it. Cruel. You would recover. Eventually. I leaned against the doorway. The chair beside his desk was empty. That chair had become strangely familiar. At first, he had wanted me there because he could see me. Later, executives had started turning toward it because they knew my opinion mattered. Now it was simply empty. I heard about the new job, Nathan said. Claire talks too much. She told me after you accepted. You did not call them? No, You did not have somebody quietly recommend me. No, you did not buy the company. Nathan stared at me. That would be excessive. With you, I have learned to verify. He almost smiled. You were in the position, Emily. Those 5 words mattered more than any favor he could have arranged. I looked down at the box in my arms. Thank you. Nathan stood. For what? For learning. His expression changed. Softer. You made the lessons difficult to avoid. We walked toward the elevators together. He did not summon a driver. He did not ask where I was going afterward. He did not tell me to stay. When the elevator arrived, I stepped inside and turned around. Nathan remained outside. You do not have to stay beside me anymore, he said. There was no bitterness in his voice. That somehow made it harder. I know. You do not owe me anything. I know that too. The doors began closing. For 1 second, I remembered room 9, the altered ticket, and the first command he had ever given me. Do not leave this room. The man standing outside the elevator could have asked me to remain. Part of me almost wanted him to. Instead, he put his hands in his pockets and gave me exactly what I had demanded from the beginning. A choice without punishment. Goodbye, Emily. Goodbye, Nathan. The doors closed. My new life began Monday morning. It was normal in all the ways I had once wanted. Meetings, vendor calls, traffic on Lakeshore Drive, grocery runs after work. Nobody watched me enter a room. Nobody became silent when the man beside me spoke. 3 weeks passed. Then Claire sent me a photograph from a Cole Meridian charity dinner. I nearly ignored it. Instead, I opened the message. Nathan sat at the head of a long table beneath warm amber lights. Executives filled nearly every seat. Nearly. The chair immediately to his right was empty. Claire had written only 6 words beneath the photograph. He still will not fill it. I told myself the empty chair meant nothing. That lie lasted until Thursday. I had spent the week buried in vendor contracts and hotel schedules, building the ordinary life I had worked so hard to protect. Yet Claire's photograph kept returning to me whenever the office became quiet. Nathan had respected every boundary I gave him. He had not called. He had not sent flowers. He had not appeared outside my office pretending coincidence. He had done the one thing I once believed a man like him could never do. He had let me leave. By 6 that evening, Chicago was covered in cold rain instead of snow. I drove downtown without deciding where I was going until bellwether appeared beyond my windshield. I almost kept driving. Instead, I parked. The dining room looked unchanged. Warm amber lights, dark walnut, soft conversations beneath the sound of rain against glass. A new manager recognized me from my old employment records when I asked about room 9. Mr. Cole is upstairs, she said. He reserves it most Thursdays. Alone. Usually. Of course he did. I climbed the stairs slowly. The door to room 9 stood partly open. Nathan sat at the same table where I had first served him the wrong drink. An espresso rested beside a stack of documents. Bourbon would have been too obvious, apparently. He looked up. For perhaps the first time since I had met him, Nathan Cole looked completely unprepared. Emily. That is still my name. He stood. What are you doing here? I was nearby. His eyes moved toward the rain-covered windows. You live 9 miles from here. Do not ruin my excuse. A quiet smile appeared. I would not dare. I stepped farther into the room. The chair to his right was empty. Claire sent me a photograph. Nathan's smile disappeared. I did not ask her to. I know. I have not been keeping that chair empty to manipulate you. I know that too. He looked at it, then back at me. Then why are you here? That was the question I had avoided during the entire drive. I set my purse on the table, but remained standing. Why do you keep coming back to this room? Nathan considered his answer. At first, because I wanted to understand what happened that night. And now, rain whispered against the windows. Because this is where somebody walked into my life by mistake and became the first person in years who was not impressed by what I could control. I swallowed. I was mostly annoyed. You were exceptionally annoyed. You were exceptionally controlling. I know. There was no defense in his voice. That mattered. Nathan looked toward the empty chair, but made no move to pull it out. I used to think keeping someone close meant preventing every possible reason they might leave, he said. Then you taught me something unpleasant. Only one thing. Several. But this one was expensive. I smiled despite myself. What did I teach you? His expression softened. That if someone stays because leaving has consequences, they have not really chosen you. The room became very quiet. Nathan took one slow breath. When I told you to stay beside me, Part of me believed protection justified the order. It did not. No, and when you left, I finally understood the difference. I looked at the empty chair. Between what? Keeping someone and being chosen by them. He did not step closer. He did not reach for me. He simply stood on the other side of the table and left the distance untouched. So I will ask once, he said. Would you stay tonight if I had absolutely no power to make you? I placed my hand on the back of the empty chair. For the first time, Nathan did not decide where I belonged. He waited for me to decide whether I belonged there at all. I pulled the chair out myself. Nathan watched without moving, as though even helping me sit might somehow interfere with the answer. I lowered myself into the seat beside him and placed my hands on the table. Tonight, I said. Something softened in his face. Tonight is enough. That answer was why I stayed longer. Not because he promised me anything. Not because I suddenly forgot every argument we had ever had. I stayed because the man who once believed power could solve uncertainty had finally learned to live with uncertainty when the choice belonged to someone else. We ordered dinner. Nathan asked about my new job. I told him about the 75-person conference I had rescued after a florist delivered arrangements to the wrong hotel. He listened without checking his phone once. When I asked about Cole Meridian, he told me the independent review involving Richard's firm had concluded. The affected companies had terminated the relevant consulting agreements through their established procedures, and Bellwether had replaced Mark after its internal investigation. No spectacle, no revenge, just consequences supported by evidence. You could have made it much worse for him, I said. Yes. Do you regret not doing that? Nathan looked at me. No, I smiled. You really are learning. Painfully. 3 months later, Thursday dinners became something neither of us formally named. Sometimes Bellwether. Sometimes a small Italian restaurant in River North. Once, because I insisted, we ate burgers at a place where Nathan spent 10 minutes studying a laminated menu as if it were a complicated business contract. I kept my apartment. I kept my job. Nathan never offered to solve problems I had not asked him to solve. When Chicago got buried under 8 inches of snow, he asked whether I wanted a car sent for me. I said yes. He did not look victorious. That mattered too. One evening in early spring, we returned to room 9. Rain traced silver lines across the windows, almost exactly as it had the night I came back. Nathan was already there. The chair beside him remained empty. He never assumed anymore. You know I am going to sit there, I said. Knowing is not choosing for you. I pulled the chair out and sat down. Beside my water glass rested a small white service card. I looked at Nathan. Should I be worried? Probably not. That is not reassuring. I turned the card over. 4 words were written across the back. Stay if you choose. I read them twice. Then I laughed softly. You practiced this, did you not? For an embarrassing amount of time. It shows. That bad. That careful. His expression changed. The room became quiet around us. I reached across the table and rested my hand over his. Nathan looked down at it, but waited. He always waited now. I turned my hand beneath his and closed my fingers first. Only then did he hold mine. I used to believe freedom meant never needing anyone enough to risk staying. Nathan believed power meant making certain the people who mattered could never leave. We had both mistaken fear for strength. The truth was simpler. Power could make a room fall silent. Money could open doors. Influence could make people obey. None of those things could create trust. Nathan had enough power to command almost anyone around him, but the only place I ever wanted beside him was the one he finally stopped ordering me to take. He opened the door. I remained free to walk through it. And that was exactly why I chose to stay.